Minister, I can report that my constituents in Scarborough Centre were pleased when the government earlier this year met its goal of bringing 25,000 Syrian refugees to Canada. We are all proud of that fact. I have met several families that have settled in Scarborough and in my riding, and the outpouring of the support in the community for these families has been very heartwarming. People have welcomed them with open hearts and open arms. Could you describe the ongoing budgetary needs to support the Syrian refugee program, particularly with regards to ensuring adequate funding for the settlement agencies?
For language, did you say?
Settlement agencies, like in regards to all these services, settlement services.
Okay. Well, I thank you for that, and I too have witnessed refugees very happy to be here and making good progress in terms of settling in. As I've said many times, this is not an instantaneous process. There will be hiccups, there will be ups and downs. But as I indicated in my remarks, we have good news in terms of just over 2/3 of the refugees already have permanent housing. In terms of funding for settlement agencies, we applied a formula on which funding was based on the average number of immigrants over the past 3 years. And so some places receive more, some places receive less, according to this funding. But in addition to that regular funding for settlement, they receive substantial additional amounts based on the numbers of refugees they accepted. And the refugees are weighted at 2.5 times the amount given for other immigrants, given the additional amount of services that they require. So areas that have received large numbers of refugees have done well in terms of the funding. But perhaps the Deputy would like to add something to that.
Just a few details further to the Minister's comments. I would just add that in terms of the funding that was authorized for the overall Syrian National Project, which included funding in the Supplementary Estimates B and with Supplementary Estimate C, an amount of almost a little over $44 million has actually been allocated for settlement services and the Resettlement Assistance Program, and that's to ensure that in fact the services are there for things like language training, facilitating things like job skilling, interviewing for job interviews, that kind of thing, in addition to the income support that's provided under the Resettlement Assistance Program. So that's basically for 2015-16, but there are also incremental resources in 2016-17 and future years on top of what is normally provided under the Settlement Services budget, which is around $589 million, and the Resettlement Assistance Program's A-base budget is about $55 million, but there are incremental resources for the Syrian initiative in particular in recognition of the fact that there will clearly be so many more people wanting to access services. So there are, as I say, and we've already certainly indicated to settlement provider organizations, we've already notified them and provided funding for this year, and that there will be additional resources provided in 2016, 17, and future years to in fact meet those needs.
And finally, I know that language training is an important issue. And I think it's approximately 30% of the settlement money. So that's 30% of $500 and something million goes to language training. So particularly with the current crop of refugees who typically speak not a word of English or French, language training is critical. And so there's a lot of money we are devoting to that.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Ms.
Do I have
Zahid.
a question?